Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's device management interface call. Thanks for joining. As usual, the call is public and recorded and will be shared on YouTube, so please be mindful of the comments you make and the information you share. One thing I wanted to mention first is that I think we are in really good shape with the device management interface. There's not been many elements around it in the past few actually months. There's been no requirement. The usage that I've seen from the Adtran DM adapter has been really good, and so I'm very happy with the state, and that is also why we haven't had calls in the past few weeks because there was really no need to discuss mostly anything. Today we do have a few topics, and I wanted to make sure that we cover those. And first of all, the first topic was brought up to me by Meet. He unfortunately cannot join us today because he's on vacation, but he wanted us to discuss the possibility to extending the image version proto to include the last updated time for that image, so that we can find out when was the last, I guess, the last update on that image, self-explanatory, both on the standby and on the active partition. And that could enable us to see, for example, when the download has happened on the standby partition, or when the activation and commit has happened on the active partition. Really what he wanted to ask is this, if this was something that the OLTs were, and the current existing OLTs, for example, the Adtran one, was capable of doing. Is this something we could do? Holger, for example, do you know?
Yes, I know, and I also wrote a comment some hours ago. So our OLT does not provide that information.
Okay.
So, I mean, the device manager could, because you're doing the update by using the device manager, so he could store it internally and then provide you the information. But I mean, the one using the device manager also should know already. So why not store then the information there and not in the device manager? So
I think I see the point. I think that the reason is to actually get a confirmation. You know, you have the information in the device manager user, so the OSS, BSS, or whatever component, and then you actually compare it to what the OLT tells you. Maybe. I'm not.
Yeah, but as I said, our OLT is not storing that, so you cannot compare it with the OLT. So,
but the device manager could, and if you
he could. I mean, yeah.
And if you trust the device manager, you're trusting the OLT. So effectively, yes.
Yeah, but if somebody does something manually on the OLT, then the information will be inaccurate, obviously. So if somebody manually updates one of the image partitions, then and does not use the device manager, then this is not correct information. I mean, I guess the device manager might be able to find out. So if there was a change and he's not aware of the change, then he's simply not able to provide that information for this image. But yeah, you know what I mean? So you're updating by the device manager like 12 o'clock today. So then the device manager knows it was 12 o'clock, but then he, for example, loses the connection to the OLT. The OLT comes back, and the device manager finds out there is now a different software on the OLT in one of the partitions. Then somebody must have done an update, which was not the device manager, and then he could provide, instead of a timestamp, he could provide just some zero information in that case. which might not be the normal use case. I guess normally it's always done using the device manager, so there is no issue, but it's not fair safe.
I see. Well, one point that we always made on this is that the device manager should be the only way you do operations on the OLT, and if you do things manually, that is bad. But I see your point. I see your point. So I guess our feedback to Amit is really, in theory, we could do this because we can have that information in the device manager and we can return it. But it shouldn't be treated as, I guess it shouldn't be used for any practical operation. Maybe the question is, why is this a requirement?
Yeah. I mean, what is really the difference? I mean, he is getting a confirmation from the device manager telling him that the update was done. So he could, in principle, just store the date and time when he got the confirmation that the update was done. So I think the information he will get from the device manager is not more precise as the one he already has. So, but for me, it sounds like it's more the question who stores what or who spends the effort on implementing it.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah. Unless other OLTs also do provide that, then I mean, then it might make sense, because if we are the only one who is not doing that, then this could be a workaround just for our OLT.
I would have to check with Radisys. I'll talk to them.
I mean, they are running on the box, right? So I guess they can just store the information on the box. So it's
yeah, that is that. So most likely they could do it, most likely. But I'll yeah, again, have to be discussed. Okay. Any other comments on this one? No? Okay. On the PM encounter data, I think, so this was the JIRA. I think we have almost all of these done except the next state. This is something we added to the protos here. We actually need to add it to the protos here. Actually, no, it was added. Sorry, my bad. So I think this PM data with some of works that have been done in the OpenONU Go as well, adapter lately for the rest of the elements, I consider all PM to be done as per the requirements of the operator. So unless Holger, you have something more from your experience with Deutsche Telekom, I think we can close this PM data.
Yeah, I think we should close it.
Okay. Do you have anything that they asked out of the DMI that was not included for these set of elements?
No, I'm not aware of anything.
Okay.
I mean, this was a request from Deutsche Telekom, wasn't it? This feature.
The PM data, yeah, it was. There was an extensive spreadsheet made from Paul Wagner from Deutsche Telekom of things that needed to be done and things that should have been there. And this auto negotiation and 2 p.m. data that we are putting together, the capability to reset and collect in the OpenONU adapter, which is going to be merged in like a couple of days, were the last remaining major items. There might be a few minor things that I would have to check, but not anything that need to be of concern of the DMI, because those, if there were mainly ONU related XGS pawn counters that are far away from now, because everybody that we know deploys GPON. So I think this is, long story short, I think this is done. Okay, so with that, the Radisys progress, unfortunately for a series of reasons, they're, I don't really know what the progress is in their open source implementation of the DMI. Again, for a series of reasons, they had to put that on hold for a little bit. I know they have some things, but they're not yet ready or polished in a way that they can be open sourced upstreamed. So I'll ping the team and see where they stand, if they have something that they can share, but at the moment is not something that it's polished enough to be put up in the open source. Okay. Okay. So these, as usual, is something that they're non-requirements at the moment. They're nice to have, but nothing that needs to be put in at the moment. The version of the API, Holger, I remember this was something that you and Amit asked about, being more strict and precise about API versioning. Is this something that that needs to be discussed,
Sorry.
or should we just go ahead and close this?
I do not remember that.
So I think this was,
which doesn't mean anything. Yeah.
So this was, if I recall correctly, the idea was to be a little bit more strict in API versioning, which I know something David would appreciate, and like going from minor to major and things like that. I think that at the moment we're pretty good, and we can be really good at checking this when reviews come in. So I think this can be actually closed.
I kind of liked it as Snake's shirt.
Corrected it. Okay. So this is all I had on the agenda for today. But let me open up the floor to folks that are here and make sure that they wanted to, if they want to bring up something, they have the time to do so. So Burak, Alessandro, David, Holger, whatever you have, just if you have something that is of concern to the team, just let me know.
Yeah, hey, I'm just here to listen up, you know, about the topics. But maybe in a few weeks or in a few days' time, you know, we can bring up some discussion about you know, multi-NNI support, and especially about the provisioning of the multi-NNI and leg interfaces through either through Volta or DM path. So that's just a heads up or something like that. I already brought that up in the BAL Brigade, as you know, Andrea.
Yes, yes.
We are discussing these internally, whether how to bring those issues, you know, to the community, and you know, especially in the you know, port setup and leg setup phase.
Let me ask a question to the group here. What is group's thoughts on where the lag configuration should live, because I'm struggling with that myself.
Yeah.
Because it's not really Volta, because to Volta, it's, I mean, we do basically no configuration of the NNI. We just enable, disable, and that's it. We could do it via the DMI, but at the moment we don't have an implementation that actually, an open source implementation that actually supports this. So that would mean achieving lag configuration either via some scripts or something else, at least in the first phase of the open source implementation. Meaning we could put it into the DMI, but then there is really nothing that can get called via that interface. So maybe David, you also have a lot of experience with the project. What are your thoughts on where to put the lag?
A couple things. I mean, yeah, I was wondering, so if I configured the lag via the device interface, how does that affect the capability of functionality through Volta? I mean, does it need to be surfaced in Volta, or does it break something in Volta? The other thought that came to my mind is, as we're kind of beginning to work some cooperation with VBF, how's VBF managing this lag?
Mm-hmm.
And does that, do we need to kind of coordinate, and maybe we can learn from how they're doing it, and borrows that, if you will.
Yes.
So for example, we in that configuration thing, we had a proof of concept work on the PT side about the static lag configuration that, we already tried that, but the lag configuration is just done on the, Broadcom configuration scripts, just site configuration data. We define some static lag configuration. These NNI indices will go into lag 0, for example. So when the agent is, initializing, it reads that data and configures a static lag, and it advertises it as an NNI 0 again. So it is agnostic to the Volta layer. So Volta layer again says NNI 0 to Volta, but agent already configured that, use that NNI 0 as lag 0, for example, with 4 NNI ports in it. But of course, it's quite a static configuration. So
yeah,
this is working.
So you configure that lag before you started Volta, then, or you can, right?
Yes.
Not before starting Volta, before connecting the OLT to Volta.
Before connecting that device to Volta.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
What happens if you configured it after the device was connected?
So I think at the moment, correct me if I'm wrong, Burak, but to change that configuration file, what you have to do is you have to turn off the OLT. So turning off the OLT, effectively, what will happen?
Restart the agent service. Restart the BAL and reagent service. Yeah.
In any case, the point is that it will get disconnected from Volta. And to Volta, I believe that it will come back and it will report the port the same, the NNI port the same, because it's still going to be one single NNI.
Yes.
And that effectively will have no effect to Volta, because we don't care about the speed of that NNI in Volta, or ONOS for that matter. So long story short.
Yeah, that says to me that it's probably outside of Volta, which is fine and good. And then it becomes a question of, is there a standard broadband form interface that already manages this? And if so, should we leverage that? Either it's part of the device management interface or as a separate interface.
Yeah, that's a nice query, because we need Volta to be aware of the interface type. I think if we want to truly, through multi-NNI support, because we should, with flow add interface, for example, through the proto, OpenILT proto, we also, declare this interface ID, etc. So we need to declare this interface type, whether it is NNI, lag, etc. So where should be this awareness, this or transparency? I don't know how to say that, but yeah, just thought.
Sorry, I missed the point, Burak. Do you think Volta needs to be aware of this? Because if we keep,
Yeah, it seems so. I don't. We are just discussing that exactly. So
because in my opinion, if we keep the information, if we keep a single port to Volta all the time, we don't need. Volta doesn't need to be aware of that, because to
but
Volta,
actually there are some. Sorry, there are
Go
some
ahead.
requests from the operator side that in terms of multi-NNI, not lag in specific. For example, you need to assign flows to separate NNIs. They sometimes want, due to some regulations, etc. They need to separate, NNI ports, assign different service flows or from different, ISPs, etc. Well, I don't know how they separate them in the service logic. They want to separate flow assignments to NNIs, egress ports
yes,
or
but
ingress.
yes, but to me, multiple NNIs is different from lag, because multiple NNI, I can still have multiple NNI ports, and actually underneath those, each of them is a lag member, or each one is a single port. I don't need to particularly
Okay.
care.
Right.
I agree that
Okay, I see.
I agree that multi-NNI needs to be there, and we can implement this in Volta, and Volta can have support for multi-NNI, and we should have it. But if that NNI is a lag or not, we can probably
Okay.
avoid this.
Okay, I
because,
see that.
because at least in the way I know lag is that once the configuration is done, the lower level Broadcom SDK will take care of forwarding the packets to both interfaces at the same
Okay,
time.
so there's something that should be added here. I just remembered that. In terms of dynamic lag, we may need to implement an application, ONOS application or something like that, just like DHCP agent, etc. Implementing, let's say, virtual LACP. Okay, so that's managing the lag membership, because Broadcom does not provide LACP stack or so that we can hide underneath OpenRT agent. So we may also discuss this, whether to implement this, virtual LACP or something like that, the lag management, dynamic lag management, that, health checks, etc. On the Volta layer or above the Volta layer.
Okay, so I think this is a good point, very good point. I think there's two steps to this. One is actually doing first lag. Let's actually achieve this first.
By the way,
And
lag membership is not supported, is not a correct expression, I think.
Dynamic LACP stack. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, not membership, but we can actually, after 3.8, about 3.8, we can freely play with the lag members, adding, removing them without playing with the quality of service, objects, etc. So that was a major constraint before 3.8. Now dynamic lag membership, operations is supported after BAW. Dynamic lag membership, yeah. Maybe we can put dynamic in front of.
Oh yeah. Sorry, yeah. Okay, because to me, this somewhat tells me that we can do it in the DMI. Especially this, we can do it in DMI. We can have the API to do lag configuration, not dynamic, static lag configuration in the DMI. And the port will be, and even if it's already connected to Volta, we should probably have the capability to do it in a way where, you change the configuration. What happens is that you bring the port down in Volta, so the port goes disabled, all the flows get purged, and then you re-add the flows and then you re-enable the port after you change the lag status, and you just then have it fixed.
Okay. So you also include, other than lag, you also include the configuration of NNI ports, right? For example, we statically configure, port speeds, etc., through Broadcom configuration files right now. So this may also include, other than lag, we can expand this scope in that sense, right?
By the way, we are already doing that for Deutsche Telekom with our device manager. So,
okay.
For example, we do VLAN configuration for uplink interfaces, and we're doing it differently. So currently, the only way to do it is to use something called a startup configuration. So we are doing a static configuration on the OLT via the device manager, and then this is reboot safe. So it keeps it as it is. So because VLANs do not change.
Say static configuration. You say static configuration, but through device manager, you
Yes.
mean the initialization of the device manager is through the static configuration files, right?
Sorry, can you repeat it, please?
Yeah, actually, you said it is statically configured, but it is done through device manager. So does that mean device manager reads some static configuration files to, configure the ports, then report it to the upper layers?
There is an gRPC in the device managing interface for updating startup configuration. And the startup configuration the device manager gets is just something, a big blob of data. And then the device manager does something with this configuration. So you can update the configuration by sending a new gRPC, and then there's always a reboot done afterwards, as Andrea wrote. So this solves some of the problems we had at Deutsche Telekom. Well, not problems, but I mean the use cases. So I think this solves the use cases we have there. For example, I guess lag could, a static lag configuration could perhaps done the same way. Yeah. If you need something statically, then this is not the way to go. But I just wanted to point out this is one way to do it.
So one question on that, Holger. I mean, you say that you put in a static configuration, then you change it, and then you effectively reboot the OLT, and it applies that configuration. Is that because the DMI does not offer the capability to configure, for example, in this case, the port speed?
Yes, I wouldn't say that the DMI does not support it. I mean, in principle, we could support it, but at least our device manager does not support to configure anything via. I mean, we have this inventory, right? And the inventory, in principle, also supports configuration. I mean, the model we are using, this IETF model, it also supports configuration. So you could actually add configuration to that model. This would be possible using the DMI interface, but we do not support it because there was no requirement for doing this. So the only thing we're doing,
Well, but this to me is a clear requirement. No, I mean, here you're changing the speed of the port.
So Andrea, are you saying that when we configure, for example, on the Aptram box, when we configure that port speed, through DM, it will be applied without reboot, right? This is the requirement, right?
No. I'm saying how you implement it, it's up to you. If they want to do it via reboot, sure. But I believe they have the capability within their software on the OLT that I don't know about to actually do it at runtime. But maybe I'm mistaken. I don't know.
No. Sure, we can do this. But the reboot has one nice side effect that Wartha is. I mean, the problem is when Wartha and the device manager are configuring at the same time. So you have to synchronize them somehow, and the reboot is doing the synchronization. I mean, Wartha sees that the OLT disconnects
because because you edit the same inventory files, etc. So
Oh, well,
I
yeah,
probably
well, if I'm not mistaken, the thing that we do in Volta does not touch that. For example, in the case of the OpenOLT, with Volta, we never touch the BRCM configuration file. So
sure,
when
but it is read, it is the data read by the Broadcom services, etc. So you request VM manager to edit some inventory files, affecting the port speed, etc. So it is read by other low-level processes, so that rebooting this whole system just freshes all the subsystem data, etc. That's why
Yeah,
I think it's a very clean way.
yeah, I'm fine. I'm totally fine with that. If somebody supports it dynamically, even better. But I'm fine with the reboot.
And I think we don't have that file on the box. So we have really an interface which allows to configure everything via netconf. So you don't change that file. So our adapter, our Volta adapter, is never editing a file. It's just issuing netconf requests, which then somehow gets translated to the Broadcom SDK. So, I mean, we're not using val, we're using the SDK directly, and this is somehow different.
Okay.
Okay, but
the idea is basically the same. I understand that.
And I also have to say that I'm totally fine with this change, in the sense that I don't particularly care if that's reboot the OLT or not.
Yeah.
By the way, sorry about bringing this large topic.
No, actually, it was good for discussion. It sets me the context, because if it comes into the TST, I know more.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think if you do have some, maybe as you said in the next weeks, some more defined thought about this, that would be good. And we can make a proposal on the APIs that we need to change here in the DMI to achieve this. And to me, this is kind of like the device software update on the Edge Core OLT. At the moment, we have a few set of scripts on the OLT and not the device manager implementation, because there's no device manager implementation on the Edge Core white box OLTs, and that will come whenever it will come. So for now, we can specify the interface, and if Adtran can do it, they're more than happy that they can do it, and they will implement it. And in the same time, we can still rely on the changing of the BRCM script. But at least whenever the implementation of the Open Device Manager comes, it knows what it has to do. It has to support that as well. Okay. Good. But and also we know what the reaction in Volta needs to be. For at the moment, I understand it should be, I will see either the device go entirely down, or at least the port go down, and will come up again with different lag configuration, and to Volta it doesn't care. Multiple NNI support, that has to be put in Volta, because at the moment we consider only one NNI. So that has to be put in. Okay. Any thoughts on this? Any further thoughts before we proceed?
But by the way, what about other things to configure? How do you configure users, passwords, keys?
We don't.
How's this done? You don't. Okay.
At the moment, we don't. So there is one password. There's one password that is configured at the startup of the OLT, the first configuration, whenever the installation of the OS is done, and that's it.
Yeah, because for our OLT used by Deutsche Telekom, I mean, they have different users and passwords, and they want to update them. I just wanted to point out there might be other configuration data, which you will find out, and not just something for the uplink interface.
Yeah, what do you configure? So user and password, that's one. And then certificates?
Yeah. yeah, or like access rights for user configure groups and yeah, and then the way the authorization is done, is it using TechX or whatever? I mean, there's quite a lot which can be configured, and this is all currently done using this startup configuration. So it's not something which is dynamically done. This is just once on the reboot and.
Well, it's a nice, neat way, as we said.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe live for the users and the password could be good. I agree. Okay. Is this something that you guys in the how do you treat this in the deployments with Turk Telecom, Burak?
I'm very sorry that I'm interrupted. Could you repeat the question?
No, I was saying, how do you treat the configuration of users and passwords and access rights and things like
on
that?
On the OLT?
On the OLT in Netsia, yeah, Netsia Turk Telecom.
Yeah, actually, this is currently the default user, so we are not managing users on the OLT right now.
Okay. 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 Oh, anything else that you guys wanted to bring up or to discuss? I feel that on this topic, we should probably go back. I need to do some digging about, like, for example, the BBF stuff for the lag and also maybe check exactly what we can configure via the BRCM configuration file, and if the startup configuration as Adrian does is an option. If there is anything else, be happy to hear. Okay, then if not, I'll publish the recording and we'll probably bring up these topics again in the TST, at least when maybe we have a better understanding. Maybe also the BAL Brigade can help. We'll have to pull a few people together for this one. But thanks for joining, and I'll talk to you again in 2 weeks. Thanks, everybody. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.